Aloha, everyone. I'm here in Malta. How cool is that, right? I'm in the Mediterranean, kind of in between northern Africa and Sicily, the southern part of Italy. If you hear some noise in the background, it's the city over here. Sun's going down. Got to visit some really cool sacred sites with my great friend David Shepard today. Got to hang out with him a lot, and it was really neat. And I want to do a Facebook Live for you guys, but it's not live because for me to do Facebook Live from Malta, I'd have to get up at 1 a.m. So this is pre-recorded. I got so many questions on the shadow, so many questions on what is the shadow, how do you deal with it. I wrote a book about it. I wrote a book called Integrate the Shadow, and that was the third book that I wrote, and it really deals with some of the deeper things that we can go through in personal growth. So before I get into all the details of the shadow and whatnot, the reason why it's so important to deal with this specific thing that we're talking about, this topic right here, is that if you're in personal growth, if you are in on a spiritual path, and you're not dealing with your deeper issues, other people are going to bring it up. That's actually the purpose of the shadow. Other people, other things, other situations are going to bring it up. And the difficulty that people have is that when something else brings it up, someone outside of you or a group of people, and your baggage comes up, it's so easy to point at that person, to point at that thing and say, it's not me. It's not me. Look, it's that person over there. It has nothing to do with me. I'm a good person. They're the jerk. The thing that irritates you the most about someone or something else is probably one of the bigger lessons that you need to bring into your life. Carl Jung came up with the concept or the term shadow, although it's a more ancient concept drawing from, you look at any spiritual path that goes back hundreds of years, 1,000 years plus, you name it. They talk about the darker aspect of the unconscious. They talk about the dark side within an individual. Carl Jung used the term shadow. He used the term shadow because, kind of like you as a physical being, when the sun is shining down on top of you, it shines this light that casts a shadow. So he's like, well, there's an aspect in the consciousness that is very similar. So think of the ego as who you are, and think of the shadow as who you're not. It develops at a very early age. I'm a doctor of integrative psychology, and when I was studying developmental psychology, you begin to develop a healthy concept of the ego early on in your life. It's the moment you begin to recognize that you're different than other people. You look at kids on a playground. They don't see race. They don't see, the color of your skin, of your eyes, of your hair. They don't see whether you're skinny or fat. They just see another being. There's no judgment placed on it. And then one day, very innocently, we wake up and we go, I'm a boy. He's a girl. That's a different kid. They look different than I do. They sound different than I do. They have different parents than I do. All of a sudden you begin to recognize who you are by understanding who you're not. See, one of the big ideas that you have to kind of just wrap your mind around is that in order for you to understand who you are, you have to also know who you're not. If you sit there and you say, I'm a good person, well, then you have to understand what a bad person is to know that you're a good person. Or to put it into just really simple terms, if you don't know who you're not, how do you know who you are? So there's this line, right? Kind of think of this line that extends out around you, and everything within that bubble is you, and everything outside the bubble is not you. Well, just to keep it on that same level of simplicity, in order for you to know at the unconscious level who you are, you have to know where that line is. So you have to know who you're not. And you have to be able to keep track of that in some way, shape, or form, which is called your subconscious or your unconscious mind. So Jung called it the shadow, not because it's dark or evil or dirty or nasty. It's just because it is a result of you being alive, kind of like a physical body. Light shines down on my body and casts a shadow. In my book, Integrate the Shadow, I actually use that very analogy. I tell a story of Skylar seeing her shadow for the first time and being afraid. And that is kind of what happens when you see your shadow for the first time. So when there's no problem in your life, when there's no issues up for you, the shadow is fine. And when there's nothing wrong in your life, the shadow is okay. Like if you're just like, hey, this is how I am, me with corporate trainings, me with corporate gigs. I don't do them. I don't enjoy corporate trainings. Some of my students do. Some of you absolutely love corporate gigs. I don't. Some people hate travel. I like travel. On my vacation time, I travel. For work, I travel. With the kids, I travel. With Tris, I travel with it's what I do. Some people hate travel. It's like I use the example of just corporate gigs or travel or something that's super simple. If I meet someone and they go, I love corporate trainings, I sit there and go, I don't. Man, high five. So awesome that you love corporate trainings. I don't. It's really cool. Let's talk about, like, what do you do in corporate trainings? I've done them. I've enjoyed it for a moment, and then I stopped, and I'm like, I'm not doing them ever again. And I've met students, people on my path where they're like, I love corporate gigs. I can't believe you don't love it. Because there's no charge. You're just sitting there going, nah, it's who I am. I don't do them, and you do. That's awesome. You have an issue with the shadow when you feel a charge, when you feel an intensity. Now, this is where people begin to get resistant. This is where people begin to get resistant of this idea, because they sit there and they go, okay, I get it. I can look out at the world and go, yeah, that person over there, that's my interpretation. That person over there, that's my interpretation. And many of us have that one person where we go, I will accept that this is my issue, except with that one person right there, there's no way I would ever accept that that's mine. That person's a bad person. Well, Carl Jung said, when you have that type of experience, when you sit there and you go, I can handle everyone except that one person, that's actually the one person that you need to pay attention to the most. That's the person that you need to pay attention to the most. And here's the thing. It's not that the unconscious mind is out to get us. It's not that the shadow is bad. Your unconscious mind is sitting there going, there's an imbalance, and the imbalance is inside of you. The imbalance is inside of you, which is why you got to project it outside. Because you think, this is who I am, and I'm not that person over there. And therefore, in order for me to balance this up, I need to have some sort of external expression of it. Let me back up a moment. Usually the unconscious mind starts off with a whisper. The unconscious mind says to you, hey, something's not right here. You go into a job and you are thinking, I don't really like this job, my boss, the environment. And you get this feeling in your gut, but rather than listening to it, you kind of take a step back and go, I think I just have indigestion. It's just something that I must have eaten something bad. So your gut gets louder, and your gut says out loud, you're walking into the job and you feel this like screaming in your head, God, I hate it here. But I have bills, I have rent, I got this, I got that. And you override it and you stop paying attention to it. See, your unconscious mind is trying to get your attention. Your unconscious mind is trying to get your attention and tell you there's something that is out of balance within you. Some people even go to a greater extreme and their unconscious mind makes them sick and they stay home and it's the best week of their life. And they're like, why am I going back to work? And then you go back to work and you're back in that environment. Finally, your unconscious mind goes, if you're not hearing the message from within, let me put it on to someone else. And so then a boundary is usually violated. And what happens is, at first, it's one person. And you're like, it's that one person over there, that coworker of mine, that individual over there. They're the problem. But then you begin to see that all around you. Then pretty soon it feels like you're surrounded. And next thing you know, you might even be acting in a certain way that you don't normally act out of reaction to the shadow. The shadow is not out to get you. It's a part of you. It actually is you. It's your unconscious mind going, I've been trying to tell you, this job, this relationship, this thing that you're doing doesn't work. I started off with a whisper. I even got you sick a couple of times. You didn't figure it out. So now I have to put it all around you to get you to realize you need to deal with something inside of you. You need to deal with whatever's going on inside, that conflict. Carl Jung said that if you don't do work on the shadow and you're in this path, you're on the path of personal growth, you're doing yourself, your clients, your students a total disservice. It takes courage. It takes courage to look within and go, this thing that I see outside of me, this person that I see over there that I refuse to acknowledge as me, it is me. It's my interpretation. Now, look, there's a stock market. There's an economy. Here in Malta, the economy is doing well. There's construction everywhere. I think you guys can hear some of it. Do you like it? Does it make the city look more beautiful? Does it make it look worse? Do you like the new buildings that are coming up, or do you like the old ones that are over there? That's your interpretation. I get it. There are things outside of you. And yet, there are some people that believe that all these things outside you have no control over you. And yet some people, by looking outside of them and going, I would be having a great vacation if not for that construction right there, I'm giving away my empowerment. I'm giving away my power to a building. I've heard people in Malta complain about the level of construction and say how it's ruining their vacation. I'm having a great time here. And yeah, there's construction. Yeah, there's new buildings going up. And yes, there's banging going on while I'm recording a video. And so what? That has no control over my state. I'm in charge of my state. It wasn't always like that for me. There were times where I was in blamer mode. The first look at the shadow, and we'll see how you guys do with this. I can go deeper with this. I can go down that rabbit hole with you guys with this. Let's see how you do with this. I'd love to hear your comments. Kind of see what you guys have to say on Facebook about this, and really take a look at it and start off with who bugs you, who just bugs you, what bugs you, and look inside and go, this is my interpretation. What do I need to resolve inside in order to reduce my charge so that I'm not giving away my power? I'll handle the extreme examples. If you have an extreme question, what about that person over there, that horrible evildoer? Maybe I'll do a video on that. I wrote a book on it, so I don't mind talking about this. I want to start off with this right here, and we'll build. We'll build on it and have these discussions about the shadow. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm going to go have dinner with Tris and Dave. Have an amazing time, and I look forward to seeing you guys. I think my next time I'm going to be recording a video is while I'm over in Italy. And there may be less banging going on over there because I'll be in the countryside. Anyway, see you guys soon. Aloha.